Welcome to the panel, Accelerating Green Energy and Renewable Technology in Affordable Housing. I'm Diana Eisenstadt, HCMC Executive Director. I'll say we don't shy away from tackling big problems at HCMC, the lack of safe and decent affordable housing, climate change, racial inequity, and we certainly value the importance of talking about big problems with all the facts in hand. In the next hour, you'll hear from experts, advocates, and elected officials, all tasked with decreasing our reliance on unhealthy and costly emissions and converting to more sustainable and economical energy sources. Let me introduce you to our moderator and panelists. Please feel free to submit questions in the chat that you may have during the hour, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. First, our moderator, Dana Bourland, works at the intersection of issues related to health, poverty, and the environment, and authored Gray to Green, a call to action on the housing and climate crises, published by Island Press in January 2021. Dana led the creation of the environment program at the JPB Foundation with a focus on transitioning to a just, equitable, and clean energy future, increasing access to the benefits of nature, detoxifying the built and natural systems, and strengthening the field of environmental justice. Formerly, Dana was Vice President of Green Initiatives for Enterprise Community Partners, where she led environmental strategy for the National Affordable Housing and Community Development Intermediary, and oversaw aspects of Enterprise's award-winning Green Communities program. And to our panelists, Councilmember and Council Vice President Gabe Albornoz is a lifelong resident of Montgomery County and has dedicated his career to public service and advocating for just social policies. Prior to his election to the County Council in 2018, Councilmember Albornoz was director of Montgomery County's Department of Recreation for 11 years. He also served as deputy director of Maryland Multicultural Youth Centers. He's widely respected as an innovator and for his ability to forge collaborations with a wide range of stakeholders. Councilmember Albernas has served on 37 boards, commissions, and committees. Next, we have Jack Lester, who's the Executive Vice President of Acquisition and Development for EYA. He leads the acquisition and development business there and has over 30 years of experience in real estate development and finance. Prior to joining EYA, Jack held various positions in finance, construction, project management, acquisition, and development. Ryan Moya serves as National Housing Trust Managing Director of Sustainability, where he leads its sustainability program efforts that build upon a successful solar energy portfolio totaling over 10 megawatts of built capacity across the country. Prior to joining NHT, Ryan was the Senior Energy and Sustainability Program Manager on CBRE's Microsoft account, where he deployed global sustainability programs across Microsoft's portfolio of over 900 facilities. Ryan was also among the core team at the New York City Mayor's Office of Sustainability, who engaged citywide agencies and mobilized support for New York City's landmark buildings and energy performance mandate legislation. Natasha Campbell brings a wealth of experience to her role as historically Black colleges and universities' Clean Energy Initiative Program Director. She previously served as a senior advisor to the Secretary of Energy in the Obama administration, with a portfolio that included labor and industrial relations for the DOE contractor workforce, economic development, workforce development, and equity and inclusion. Natasha was instrumental in establishing the DOE Baltimore Initiative, a collaborative effort including the City of Baltimore, Morgan State University, the Maryland Clean Energy Center, and other community stakeholders to expand access to solar energy for low and moderate income residents and job seekers. Tom Deyo is the Chief Executive Officer of the Montgomery County Green Bank. Tom joined the Green Bank in June 2017 as the organization's first CEO to support the Green Bank's mission to accelerate affordable investment in clean energy for the benefit of businesses and residents of Montgomery County. The Green Bank was capitalized by over $20 million through the county from settlement funds with the utility manager. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dana to begin our conversation.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Diana. And I believe there may be a few more people in the waiting room if we could go ahead and admit them. But we're really thrilled to be with you today. And our goal is to make sure that you leave and we all leave here today feeling motivated and knowing more about how to accelerate energy efficiency and renewable energy in affordable housing so that we all benefit. We often think of benefiting the tenants, which is great, and we absolutely must center them in all of our work, but we all benefit when we do this work, from cleaner air, water, soil, and a society where we all have a place to live that we can afford. So just a little bit more about myself. As Diana mentioned, I have been working in this space for over 2 decades now, and recently published a book because I was continuing to see this bifurcation of the climate sector and the housing sector. And my book is really about making quantum leaps in equitably addressing these dual crises of climate change and housing affordability in one fell swoop, as I like to say, by going from gray to green. And even though we probably all know it here today, it's still important to repeat that we're at an extraordinary point in human history where the people who have had the absolute least to do with creating these dual crises are indeed the ones who are feeling their impact on a daily basis, really never knowing from day to day when that rug is going to get pulled out from under their feet. So the problem, in the way that I see it, is that it's the way we're producing and preserving housing in this country, which is just not meeting demand. And it's at odds with our collective need to take action to curb carbon emissions and really avoid catastrophic planetary collapse. I know that that sounds far-fetched, but it's actually not. It's very much what's at stake today. And I think it's worth underscoring for our panel that 20% of all of our carbon emissions in the United States stem from heating, cooling, and powering our homes, making our homes actually the world's 6th largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions, comparable to the country of Brazil and more than the country of Germany. So it's important to sit with that for a moment before we get started. And even though, you know, we're all hoping for some magic solution, it's really going to take all of us doing everything we can to meet these dual crises. We can't just decarbonize the grid and call it a day, because over half of our housing stock, as we know, is at least 40 years old or older, and it will continue to pollute if we don't intervene. So I often get frustrated because I feel that we're not moving fast enough. We certainly have the solutions, and it's not about me today or my book, although I hope you read it and get in touch with me if you want through danabourland.com. But again, it's about what we collectively can do together to address these dual crises and really make a quantum leap forward. And so, my book presents a host of solutions, but our panelists are bringing their own expertise and experience about how they are doing this work. And so I'm very enthusiastic to bring our full panel on, take them off mute, and to have you hear first, I believe, from our council member, Vice President, Gabe Albornoz. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dana, and thank you for that warm introduction earlier. I'm not ashamed to say I am the weak link on this really remarkable panel of experts in this field. And so it truly is an honor and privilege to be among all of you, tackling what is undoubtedly a very complex and important issue. And I do serve as Vice President of the County Council and also chair the county's Health and Human Services Committee. And we have had just an extraordinary year. Just filled with disorientation, devastation, tragedy. It's been extremely difficult, and we've all been doing everything we can to address the myriad of issues that are facing our constituents. But I have landed on being very hopeful for the future, and that leads me to my comments this afternoon. It sometimes takes crisis for us to truly be able to focus on and think about the kind of system building that is necessary to truly impact long-term and sustainable change. It takes political will, and we certainly have that right now in spades, both when it comes to the need for additional affordable housing, the needs to address our climate emergency, but now the need to address our public health crisis here in our community as well. And all three of those things intersect in the conversation we're having this afternoon. We know that stable, safe, and healthy and affordable housing is essential to the financial stability of our community, and especially in addressing intergenerational poverty. We know that housing insecurity undermines unemployment, health, education, and other key elements of a sustainable path out of poverty. And as we speak right now, more than 20,000 Montgomery County residents are facing eviction. And while we're doing everything we can by providing additional financial support and trying from a policy perspective to address their needs, the sad reality is we are not going to be able to prevent all 20,000 of those people from being evicted. And so we have a crisis before us right now. Affordable rental homes are particularly important for limited income and minority households. And right now in Montgomery County, nearly half of renters are considered cost burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs. And this, of course, disproportionately impacts our Black and Brown communities. And we must do everything possible to both preserve existing affordable housing, but also think creatively and thoughtfully without creating all other sets of issues with regards to infrastructure, but in creating an additional set of housing stock available to our residents. And I've learned a long time ago as a policymaker, affordable housing means different things to different people. And that often is determined by where you are in life, your economic income, and also where you live geographically in our community as well. And we know that improving the energy and water efficiency of buildings is an essential strategy to preserve existing affordable rental housing. And we also know that efficiency upgrades can result in significant financial savings to the property that can be reinvested in the property to make improvements that improve quality of life and the experience of the folks that live in those buildings. This can be used to replenish reserves that are set aside for future building repairs and can help free up capital to offset potential rent increases. There are also several ways that efficiency upgrades help to preserve affordable housing by improving the financial stability of the property. Efficiency upgrades can significantly lower operating expenses, and utility bills can compromise up to 1/5 of operating expenses in multifamily affordable homes. Often folks who can afford the least to be able to make these payments. And replacing older building equipment with new and more efficient equipment can result in lower maintenance costs. Savings from efficiency upgrades improve the cash flow of the property, which can be used to leverage additional debt financing that can be reinvested to make other capital improvements to these buildings. And I'll close with these last few thoughts. It's not just a moral responsibility for us to address these issues, it's an economic responsibility as well. There is no doubt that you can draw a straight line between the climate impact and what is exasperating the economic situation and the financial instability that currently is happening in communities. And as the chair of the Health and Human Services Committee, the final dot I want to connect is this has significant public health implications. We have had a disproportionate number of our residents living in zip codes in mostly older buildings that have also been disproportionately impacted by the virus with tragic consequences. And so we must ensure, while we're also addressing our public health issues, that we address these infrastructure issues as well, because they go hand in hand. And the final thing I'll say for now is the last thing that gives me hope, going back to something I said at the beginning, is that 10 years ago, if you had asked the average county resident where climate change and fell in terms of their priorities, it probably wouldn't have been in the top 5. But based on the advocacy that we're seeing now, based on the very thoughtful comments that we're getting from civic associations, based on not just, it's multi-generational, it's multicultural. People are speaking up about climate issues and they are connecting the dots on how it directly impacts affordable housing. And so there is political will and there is a coalition forming of non-traditional community-based organizations that will eventually partner with our private sector to get us where we need to go. Montgomery County is leading the way in many ways. Our climate emergency action plan is significant, it's bold, it's profound. And as Dana mentioned, it's imminently urgent. We have to address and tackle these issues right now. We can't wait. It takes time, it's painful. I learned a long time ago, the word patience is rooted in the Latin word to suffer. we can't be patient anymore. We have to be able to move forward. So thank you, Dana, very much for your introduction. I look forward to answering any questions that folks may have in the end.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Council Member Vice President, for those remarks and for really calling us forward and giving us a sense of urgency and why this is so important and how it connects to so many other issues that we're grappling with. So really appreciate your comments. Next, we're going to hear from Ryan Moya with the National Housing Trust, who's a long-time practitioner. We're really eager, Ryan, just to hear more about how you're doing this work. Give us some ideas of what others could be doing.
Yeah, thank you, and really excited to join this panel. And as Dana mentioned, I think the challenges are immense, and we need sustainability solutions to not only address the challenges at hand, but also to meet the moment in time. Because as was previously mentioned, that there is significant political and capital needs from the investor community to meet this challenge at hand. You can go to the next slide. So before I get started in terms of what we're doing at NHT, just a little background at the National Housing Trust. As a mission-based organization, our mission is committed to creating and preserving affordable homes that provide opportunity, advance racial equity, reduce economic disparities, and strengthen community resilience through policy and practice. One of the things that's very unique about NHT is that we're the only organization that has and addresses these challenges at hand through a policy arm, a real estate development arm, as well as a CDFI lending arm. And my role is really navigating and incorporating sustainability across each lever within NHT's mission statement. Next slide. So as many of you might know, I think NHT has become a recognized leader within the affordable housing sector of not only driving equitable solar solutions across our own portfolio, but supporting other affordable housing owners and nonprofit entities deploy over 10 megawatts of low-income solar energy capacity across the country. As Dana noted, there are significant barriers to ensuring that equitable solutions are delivered for nonprofit entities, and that disadvantaged communities are not left out of the clean energy revolution that is happening through our country right now. And I think we're excited about where that can go in the future. In June, I think we have a good representation of the community solar projects that we'd like to accelerate going forward. We'll be breaking down with partnership with Hbcu and DC Solar for All grant program to install just over a megawatt of community solar. And one of the things that's particularly exciting about this is that we're able to not only have returns that are important to accelerate clean energy across any real estate portfolio, but it also advances NHT's mission by supporting local workforce development and providing over $160,000 in annual free power to wards 7 and 8 households. And I think the additional step is providing additionality to these community solar projects by signing our own NHT properties in wards 7 and 8 that will be incorporated and receive the direct benefits that are so promising about community solar. Especially pertinent for this conversation. With my arrival to NHT, there's been an increasing focus to linking policy to practice and incorporating sustainability across the organization, and where are the new levers that we need to be leading across the space, similar to what we have done in equitable solar solutions. One example of that, and driving to the motivation behind it, is that we've been working closely with our policy team on a DC building energy performance standard, and supporting affordable housing owners navigate the challenges of not only compliance, but looking at this as an opportunity. And across our own portfolio, advancing beneficial electrification and pilots that provide direct health improvements to our residents, but also show demonstration projects for a particularly nuanced area across incorporating deep energy retrofits and electrification across existing buildings. Next slide.
And if you could wrap up, Ryan, that'd be great.
Sure. And going to the motivations behind this, part of this is linked to a 5-year strategic plan across NHT that we're excited about, and not only incorporating the equitable solar solutions through our climate pillar that you see, but also community resilience through solar storage, but a beneficial electrification, and particularly providing economic prosperity to our residents. And next slide. I think the last thing that I'll say is that I'd be remiss to not mention, and I know that our policy team would want me to say this as well, is that we are a founding member of Energy Efficiency for All, or EFA, and Maryland coalition, and that works closely with Dana and the JPP Foundation. And this has produced significant results through the Empower program and low-income energy efficiency programs in Montgomery County. And so some of those achievements, as you see on the screen, is that Maryland's DHCD will administer $83 million in energy efficiency funding for low-income households. And there's also an increase in budget that's been associated to the program, is especially pertinent to the audience here that will be implementing the desperately needed solutions across their own portfolio.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. So much there. I know you have more to say, so we'll try to accomplish that when we get to some conversation later. But I'm thrilled to bring up Jack Lester and to hear what you have to say as a private sort of for-profit affordable housing developer. Why are you doing this, and what are you doing?
Sure, thanks, Dana. So like the other panelists, I'm super grateful to have been considered for the panel, and hopefully maybe a slightly different perspective on for sale affordable housing. Next slide. EYA is a 30-year Bethesda-based company. We have 100 folks. I lead our acquisition and development team. Next slide. We do have 8 active projects, 2 in Montgomery right now, 1 at Tower Oaks and 1 at Cabin John Village. 4 areas of focus for us. Many of you may know us for townhomes or for sale townhomes. Condominiums, we have done that. We've got an active condominium project in Alexandria. Multifamily rental, we've been in several partnerships with HOC at our Shady Grove site, and a project I'll talk about in a minute. And a big part of what we do is also working with housing authorities to develop mixed income developments. We've done that in Alexandria, in the District of Columbia. As I mentioned, we're working with HOC, I think, on our 3rd deal, and we've been recently selected as the development partner with DCHA at a major redevelopment down in Southwest DC. All important parts of what we do, but I'm going to talk about on the next slide are for sale townhomes and the affordability that we deliver in a for sale as opposed to rental. I want to cover 4 areas, kind of the nuts and bolts of design and materials and systems, the things that go into a for sale affordable home. Also where we build, we think that's a huge impact on sustainability and eliminating or reducing reliance on cars. And then sustainability once the owner moves in. And there's a little disconnect, right, between somebody like me who's selling a person a home and then, has no follow-on obligations, kind of the cost benefit is not as clear in a rental situation. So next, Dana. So with that broader lens, couple of things. Here's a project that we've completed in the last couple of years, Montgomery Row, across from the Marriott headquarters. Number one, we start with are the affordable homes, the MPDUs are indistinguishable. So I happen to know this, the third one in from the right is the MPDU. So we go to really great pains to make sure there is no differentiation, same materials, same windows, doors, same level of quality on the outside. And of course, it would be incredibly hypocritical to not carry those same things inside. So we use the same materials when we build the affordable homes. We use tankless water heaters. We use the Energy Star windows and doors. We use the high efficiency train systems. So whether you're buying a $1 million townhome or a $2 million townhome, we're not changing what goes behind the walls in the affordable for sale homes. We do wire for solar panels on the roof in locations where it's appropriate. We offer wiring for electric cars and using reflective roofing membranes. Next slide, Dana. Thank you. This, again, this is a project we completed about a year ago at Chevy Chase Lake. This was a partnership with HOC. And the middle unit, or maybe I should just say, find the affordable for sale unit here. I gave it away. It's the one in the middle. Again, same thing, no differentiation on the outside and none on the inside. And this project, if you go to the next slide, speaks to the second part of sustainability. Sustainability is where we build, right? We build where folks have access to transit, right? This is on the purple line, have access to shopping next to a shopping center, have access to jobs, schools, parks, and services. So, kind of ending that reliance solely on the car is a way to increase sustainability. Next slide. Again, give you a sense of where EYA builds. This is the metro map. So again, kind of living to our saying, which is life within walking distance, building on those transit corridors in those job hubs. And then the last piece is ongoing maintenance. So you've bought an EYA home, you're affordable or workforce buyer. We are also doing and thinking through the things that maintain that sustainability. So clearly keeping the community well maintained. That's something that we do through our HOAs, and in the market rate units subsidize the cost for the affordable units. We also use cutting edge stormwater systems. That happens to be stormwater in the top picture in the circle. And then the interior finishes, we are also looking for, whether it's the luxury vinyl tile or the LED light bulbs, thinking about the owner after they move in and their cost to operate and keep their home. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much, John. Just absolutely beautiful properties inside and out for the people and for the planet, given your strong commitment to those green measures and methods that you're applying. So really appreciate your presentation. And next we have Natasha Campbell. Really pleased to have Natasha here. We're also working with her through the JPB Foundation. So it is a thrill to have you join us, Natasha. Thank you. I believe you just have to, yeah,
yep,
great.
Got it. Thank you, Dana. It is a pleasure to be here and to be part of this discussion, and congratulations to Diana and others for what appears to have been a great agenda for the discussion today. I did notice on the agenda you had Congressman Sarbanes as well as former Secretary Perez, and it's kind of interesting because the work that I do was actually started with the support of both of them. It started with what was at the time the Clean Energy Savings for All conference that was held at Morgan State University and featured then Secretaries Perez and Moniz really talking about the need to engage and increase awareness of underserved individuals in this energy revolution, as Ryan referred to it as. So it was nice to see that, you know, they continue to be supporters of this work and how to really connect individuals who might not otherwise have been able to be connected to this work. In fact, last week, we had a convening with the National Association of State Energy Officials, and Congressman Sarbanes was there to support the HBCU Clean Energy Initiative in our work with NASIO. So again, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the HBCU Clean Energy Initiative and the HBCU Community Development Action Coalition. Our work is really focused on how to better connect underserved communities to this space. One of the things that during my time at the Department of Energy, we focused on was there's this new, at the time, technology that was solar that really had all these benefits, environmental and economic, that really did not reach underserved communities. And the connection to historically Black colleges and universities, as you know, they were created for the purpose of educating Black Americans at a time when access to education was not as open as it is now. And most of them, there are 106 HBCUs in the country. I think 99 of them are located in underserved communities. So the thought was HBCU are community members, and how do we participate as leaders, taking advantage of the faculty, taking advantage of the students in terms of the workforce opportunities that exist in the sector to really engage community members. Many of them did not have basic awareness of clean energy and how they can, through their own behaviors, from the choices they make about where to live, the choices they make around water, the choices they make around a number of things, they can impact their own outcomes, from health, from utility costs, and so forth. So the effort I referenced with Congressman Sarbanes and former Secretary Perez was really pulling together stakeholders who were already engaged in this space to think about, how do we do this? Local government was interested in this work. So with then Mayor of Baltimore, Stephanie Rawlins Blake, organizations like Civic Works, organizations like the Able Foundation, we partnered with Morgan State University, an HBCU in Baltimore, to work with Homeowners Association and their members to connect and provide them with this technology. Many of them did not have a level of awareness. Most of them could not afford it. And what we also know that, what we also discovered or confirmed is that in order to really support individuals who are not familiar with this space, there needs to be a level of trust with the person who is doing the education and information. So that is the role that the HBCU played, to connect the community members who are the neighbors of the institution to engage around what this is, how they can take advantage of it, and with support provide the financial assistance to do that. The success of the Morgan State model resulted in 33 homeowners receiving the technology. And in addition to that, it also provided, through partnership with Grid Alternatives, introduction to workforce training for job seekers. Many of them were underemployed, or in even worse situations, were unemployed. So through that training and mentoring with Grid Alternatives, you also had a group of individuals who were introduced to the technology, introduced to the benefits, and connected to job opportunities in the industry. That model was so successful prior to the Obama administration ending. Secretary Moniz established what is called the HBCU Clean Energy Initiative, which is the organization or the program that I worked on, with the understanding that this model of HBCUs, local government, workforce organizations, and other supporters, elected officials, because quite often you need a voice, right? Without good legislation, you won't have good policies that will make it easier for communities and individuals to take advantage of the various technology. To replicate that in the HBCU communities across the country, I referenced the 106 HBCUs. They're located in 20 states across the country. Most of those states are in the South. There's obviously one but there are actually two in the District of Columbia, our neighbors, and of course the Virgin Islands. So our work, supported by organizations like JPB, allows us to replicate that model in other communities. Our newest project is with North Carolina A&T in Greensboro, North Carolina, where we work with a number of stakeholders, the university, the local environmental office, as well as nonprofit organizations like Community Housing Solutions and energy companies like Southern Energy Management to do the same thing that we did in Baltimore. And we're also learning that it's not just environment or workforce or technology. There's also a gap in entrepreneurship. There are a number of local entrepreneurs who are trying to penetrate this space, but without the experience of working and partnering with other companies, they're just not able to compete for competitive, they can't respond to solicitations that would allow them to participate in this industry. And what our experience tells us, like, EYA, major developers, there are small companies that can benefit from, and I don't know how, as we develop solutions around this topic and this resource, how large companies can partner and can provide some type of mentorship to small companies. I'll share very quickly. And
Natasha, if you could wrap up, we're a few minutes over. Thank you.
No problem. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to share the work that we do at the HBCU Coalition locally in Maryland. We're also partnering with the NAACP on their Solar Equity Initiative, which is a Maryland-based program that includes Montgomery County working with job seekers in communities like Hyattsville and so forth, where we know unemployment is at a high rate. So thank you for including us, and I look forward to the discussion.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Natasha. Obviously, way more that we could learn from what you are implementing, and terrific to hear how you are connecting the dots through this initiative, from the workforce training to the benefits directly to the homeowners and residents. So thank you for joining us. And we're going to wrap up the panel now with Tom Deyo. You are on mute, my friend.
Paying attention to running the slides, not my computer. So thank you, Dana, and thank you for your longtime leadership in this space. Known you from Enterprise Green Communities and then taking it over to JPB Foundation. So thank you. You've brought a lot of energy and motivation in the space, and we're grateful for it. Thank you. And I also want to thank Diana for including this panel on the Affordable Housing Conference in Montgomery County, an important topic to have there, and I appreciate the sponsorship you gave. So I wanted to talk through sort of what the Green Bank is working here in this space, but I would just say that Councilmember and Vice President Albornoz did a lot on the front end of this, to sort of setting the stage around this, on why these benefits are, how do you think about energy savings, how do you think about the maintenance improvements. They did a great laying the groundwork for that, and made the argument of why this is best for the benefits of the residents and the community. So I'm going to drive deeper into sort of thinking about what are the things that affordable housing sort of faces with, incorporating this, and where is some of the financing solutions and the roles that the Green Bank can play to help there. So I broke the drivers down into a couple areas, what might be thought of as some of those traditional drivers and some of these emerging ones. But when you think about affordable housing, there's various phases it goes through, various things it's trying to accomplish, each of which brings a challenge, but also maybe the opportunity. So, the first thing is, there's the new construction or substantial rehab, when these properties are at the prime point for introducing energy efficiency, clean energy activities. They're driven by things like the building energy codes or the IGCC codes. And also, as you heard from Jack, the idea of sustainable properties, right? So that's the time to get in there and sort of really drive to it. And things that come about, if you're looking for low-income housing tax credits, the QAP gives you certain guidance to do that. The county's got the IGCC that provides that level of guidance. They're introducing potentially building energy performance standards. You got enterprise green communities, all these things that help you understand what it is that you need to do. And there's a lot of financing options out there between LIHTC Equity, the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, the Montgomery County's Department of Housing and Community Affairs. Go for the free money, go to those utilities, get that free money. But also then there's CPACE. It may not always be the right thing, but in some instances, commercial PACE is an opportunity to bring into the financing structure. So once a property's operating, now you sit in this point of, okay, I've got an operating property, it's moving along. And maybe you didn't get a chance to introduce all those energy savings you wanted up front. So now you're at sort of that retrofit. And the objective there is to now bring in those energy savings. How do you get to those energy savings earlier than waiting out that period till that refinance happens? There's clearly obstacles out there. Not everyone can match this. There's, what's your capital and what are its constraints around that and split incentives. But there are ways to get there. There are, again, those utility incentives that can help offset those costs. Unsecured financing with flexible payment options that maybe get you out of where the capital stack may be limiting you is another opportunity. But I always hate to think that these properties who are thinking if they got an 18, 20-year life cycle, wait 18 to 20 years to take advantage of things that they can do that maybe they had to leave on the cutting room table floor because they just couldn't get to them at the beginning. And the third here is renewables. It might not be always the thing that's thought about, but really the objective here is how do you get off the grid? How do you reduce those operating and tenant costs and bring those straight down into the property benefits? Many times, again, the constraints of a development budget, particularly in a substantial rehab, come into play, right? I can't get there. Every time I add a dime, I got to go chase down that free money or somewhere else to get there. But there are opportunities to get there. And a couple options are, you can think about third-party owned and managed finance PV systems where all that financing is someone else's burden and the management is somebody else's burden, but you actually then get the benefits of the operating costs. So your operating income can either be stabilized or reduced, and you don't have to worry about building that budget in. The other is community solar. Sometimes it doesn't work to put it on your own property, but community solar is out there in the marketplace. As an owner, you can actually participate, in the Maryland program. You could buy 60% of the community solar subscriptions as a single off-taker into those community solar and drive all those benefits right down into your tenants in the market, right in your property. So there's an opportunity to leverage community solar. Now I'm going to get into the next level, which is expanding drivers for clean energy, right? So we heard Jack talk about sustainability and Ryan talk about resiliency. Resiliency is now this new thing that needs to be thought. Maybe it's not new, but it's certainly coming forward with all the storms and the other things hitting. How do you assure your property is actually going to maintain operations in any conditions? Not every property needs it, but when you think about someone, they got elevators there, they got seniors or assisted living. You got really critical, tenants that may need to have the facility operating, and storms are coming and going all the time. So how do you think about that resiliency? There's certainly options out there. There's solar plus storage. We just did an exercise of working with one of the affordable housing properties in the county to explore that as an option. And then there's also the idea of bringing in microgrids. You might bring in CHP or something in order to sort of generate the electricity, but there's ways to create those opportunities right on site in order to build in that resiliency. The next, and this is highly driven by the environment we're just coming out of, right? Indoor air quality, right? It's been out there for a while, but I think the pandemic has brought a greater focus on just what happens when you're living in these homes for as many hours as we're living in them now. So what is that occupant health? The pandemic's driven negative air pressure. A lot of times these properties are not set up and you draw in poor air from the corridors right into the units. And whether the systems are modern enough in order to handle the filtration and the air exchanges. So that's some of the options. How do you get some of those HVAC systems in there to do more of that air exchange and filtration, address leakage or flow. And the last thing is EV chargers. This could have been sort of an amenity. It's going to become a necessity. How do you think about putting the EV chargers on the property? Because if you're going to remain competitive out there, you're going to be competing with other properties, and someone's got a car like, and if you don't have an EV charger, they can't move into your property. So how do you sort of have to think about that as incorporating it as you're building the property or substantial rehab, and in order to attract and retain those tenants? Utilities, multifamily properties, it's the only thing Hbcu will support. And so there's a way to go after those utility incentives. There's potential offsetting revenue. You know, not everybody should get their gas for free. Why should they think of powering their Tesla for free or their Volt or whatever? And then there's the opportunity of financing the equipment based on those. So last slide here is just, you know, we've been developing a suite of products to help in this space, and this sort of lists out a number of the things that we've brought to the table. I mentioned CPACE, we're now the program administrator for this, but this is a great opportunity. You can get long-term 20-year capital, lower cost, 100% financing. You have your capital providers, they're gonna be on top of it, but if you do it at the front end, at new construction or substantial rehab, you get in that conversation earlier, you can build this in. On the retrofit, we've got a commercial loan out there, 100% financing, 12 years. We also introduced a small business program, much more flexible, 100% financing, only goes out 5 years. But if you're trying to build in something that you left on the table that has a high return to it, this is a chance to get there. And it's unsecured financing, or it's secured by the UCC, so it tries to stay away from the capital stack issues. The one we're real proud about is we just launched a commercial solar power purchase agreement. So that opportunity to use third-party financing and ownership to do it is what we're bringing to the table. We look at creating a fixed per kilowatt hour price on that contract for 20 to 25 years. So think about it. You're paying 10 cents an hour today. You pay 10 cents an hour for 20 years. If the utility goes out to 15 to 20, you don't worry. Your operating budget's already covered. And the last is we've been offering technical assistance in the market to help affordable housing, ownership and rental, to sort of look at their current conditions and think about what they might be able to bring to the table to change those. And we actually just did something with Clean Energy States to bring assessment for solar plus storage. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I was just trying to drive into where the spaces you may say, I can't get there, and saying, no, there is a way there. And the Green Bank has some tools to help you get there. So that wraps it up for us, Dana.
Yes, terrific. Thanks. Ending with a bang, and some great resources and ideas for what we can access to do more of this work. So great. If you could take your slides down, we'll just open it up, have everybody present. We have a few minutes left. There haven't been too many questions in the chat. There is one I see. So if you could integrate that into your answer for the question I'm going to ask you, that would be terrific. So the question in the chat is about using technology, particularly maybe artificial intelligence, but for idea of kiosks in homes or residential buildings, to overcome some of the barriers that residents face around discrimination and just access to information generally. So keep that in mind as you answer the question that I'm posing to all of you. And we'll start with you, Councilmember, Vice President. You've all offered an array of practices and policies that you're implementing or that have been helpful to you. What's the one thing that you absolutely would implore everybody here today to do? Or if you prefer, what is the magic wand you'd like to wave that maybe some of us on the call could help make happen that would accelerate our activity around energy efficiency and renewable energy and affordable housing? So Councilmember, any comments you'd like to make there?
Sure, I'll make two. The County Council in Montgomery County, Maryland, 2 years ago adopted what we call the racial equity framework. So every bill, every line item in the budget, we do our best to think through a racial equity lens. And oftentimes, the tenants of these properties are not aware of this technology that exists, not aware that there are these opportunities that are out there or resources that they may be able to draw from. And while, you know, government certainly plays an important role from a policy practice and in helping to connect to the community, it really takes coalition. And so I think we have to think about some non-traditional partners, maybe in the faith-based organizations, maybe among our parent and teacher associations, and going into schools, looking for trusted individuals in these communities that have a voice, that have some level of influence beyond all of us. And we need better messengers. And frankly, the communities themselves, if they're residents that have directly benefited or been impacted and have seen this change, we should empower them and frankly, support them, maybe even monetarily, to help get the word out, because it's community to community, person to person, that will draw the greatest impact. We can have all these broad, amazing policies, but if we're just preaching to the choir, we're not going to be able to get to the next level. So I think that coalition building will be important in the next phase of this discussion.
Terrific. Yeah, I could not agree more. It's incredibly important. I spent a lot of time investing in that and building networks and ways to connect people and communities better. And Brian, I know this is part of sort of your DNA at NHT. You can respond to those comments or give us your own sense of either the one thing you absolutely feel everybody should be doing at this point in time, and or, you know, what would you wish that we were all doing to get there faster?
Yeah, I think that if I could wave a magic wand, I think to address the challenges and the stakes of what is actually needed, and especially for mission-based organizations like NHT, I think, you know, it's very important to look at the key levers of how to accelerate not only you know, high energy performing buildings across the building stock that need to decarbonize because of scientific commitments, but within the affordable housing sector that is so nuanced and so different than a commercial office building or what have you, what are the key areas and what are the additional, there's a big conversation about equitable storage right now. I think, you know, from a federal tax subsidy standpoint, the ITC is not enough. We've found a way to monetize and help other affordable housing owners monetize that. But for mission-based organizations that want to incorporate workforce development and economic opportunities for our residents and the neighborhoods that we serve, but also additional barriers such as solar plus storage, and what does resilience look like, and how do we pencil that where in some affordable housing developments can't incorporate demand rate reduction charges and, you know, things like that other sectors can. I think to answer your question, I think, you know, health and economic opportunities are the key levers to driving the additional benefits of how to accelerate change and in the properties that we implement. But then also, if you look at the key levers to accelerate change at the state and local level, it is through the QAP process. And I think I can't emphasize that enough, where if you are an affordable housing owner and developer, if it is advantageous to go for passive house certification and it's incentivized through the QAP process, then that's how it will get done. And similar with electrification, if incentives are just incentivizing common area usage, but there's not direct health benefits for residents by highly incentivizing induction cook stoves, then are we really calling it equitable and beneficial electrification? So I think the levers and, you know, what are the key interventions to accelerate change?
Thanks, Ryan. I really appreciate that. And just for everybody to take that to heart, you know, as we're doing whatever it is, whatever our seat at the table is in this space, who's benefiting? How do we bring those known benefits to the people who had the least to do with creating the crisis, but could measurably benefit from our actions? And Jack, you were really spot on in your delivery of a 5-minute presentation. So I'm hoping you can also keep your remarks concise as we're winding down our session here. But, you know, I often hear as I speak around the country with this new book of mine that it just doesn't make sense for sale developers to engage, that it's, you know, not something that they would benefit from putting all of these green measures in that could reduce costs for the homeowner. Can you speak a little bit more about the things that you absolutely think every for sale developer should be doing as their part in meeting these dual many crises around housing and climate change?
Yeah, no, thank you. It's a great point. And you're absolutely right. It's not economically rational for a builder to put the same high efficiency HVAC system in the $2 million home as in the $200,000 home. And I'm assuming some builders make the economic rational decision and maybe not the morally correct one. And I can't speak for it. I mean, there's different constituencies and there's fiduciary obligations. I do think government has a role. In Montgomery County, it's kind of a rigid formula for determining sales price. And it doesn't incentivize, you know, kind of things I talked about, tankless water heaters or high efficiency systems. I think that's probably an easy fix to make it for those builders that may not be economically motivated, to incentivize them. And then we all, to your earliest point, Dana, then we all benefit, right, with the environment, or to the council member's point. So I think that there's some easy fixes there to make it a rational decision for everybody.
Great, I appreciate that a lot. And Natasha, we're almost out of time, but you spoke directly to this point of the need to help us all understand what we're talking about when we even discuss energy efficiency and renewable energy. So many community members just don't understand what it might mean for them and how to engage. What would you like to see more communities in Montgomery County do to engage people on these important issues in the shortest amount of time possible?
You know, to be brief, I think it's just to keep it in the conversation. I think quite often you have educators, you have public housing authorities, and, you know, others in the space, and they're looking at my core business is to educate. My core business is to, you know, maximize the number of affordable housing units I can get out of this deal. But I think while you're having those conversations, I think we should really keep in front of us, you know, this clean energy and environmental conversation. There's always the economic benefits that I think everyone is trying to really achieve in whatever we're trying to do. So I just keep it in the conversation and be aware of it.
Great, thank you. And Tom, you've been so generous in pulling us all together. I would just hand it off to you for some final words to summarize and close us out today. Thank you so much to everybody.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Councilmember Albornoz, Ryan, Jack, Dana, Natasha. Appreciate it. And Diana, again, thanks for having this panel. But I guess, Dana, to your earlier question, I would say is you're not in this alone, right? I think the opportunity here is, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, we've been in this for decades, but there's a growing set of stakeholders out there that can participate in this. And so don't leave this stuff on the cutting room floor, really. Don't value engineer it out. If you're trying to get something done, reach out to other partners, find out how it's been done, reach out to us, investors like us, and see how you can get there, right? I think it's all possible, but if you sit alone trying to make it happen, it's very difficult. But I would just say that there's partners out there galore. Reach out to them and really try to find a way to make sure that it works for what you're trying to achieve. It can be done. It's being done, but don't try to think that you have to do it all by yourself. There's plenty of partners out there that can bring good advice to this. So that's what I would say is it's a partnership out there.
Fantastic. Great way to end. So just a huge thanks to all the panelists and to Diana for convening us, and to all the participants. And we look forward to following up in whatever way we can. As Tom said, you are not alone. We are not alone. We're all in this together. So let's get there, as I like to say, in one fell swoop from gray to green. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so very much. This was an amazing panel. And it will live on our website, and there'll be a link that you can share anywhere you wish. And I think that you're going to proselytize everybody. I think everybody's going to come on board, so there'll be many more to work with. So amazing conversation, great issue, and many thanks for sharing your time with us.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.